I just wholeheartedly reject that premise. There is black and white, good and evil, dark and
Right.
light. There is no gray area. It gets gray as you get up to the line, but then there is a line.
Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. We have a returning guest today. It's going to be a very fun conversation talking all things adventure. I'll pass it over to Luke to introduce the guest.
Yeah, guys, this is a very fun, special episode. I haven't experienced it yet, but I already know that for a fact because Ryan Pote's the man. I mean, if you guys haven't read Blood and Treasure, which was the debut novel from Ryan Pote, get on that immediately. Go watch the episode that we did with him. It was a breath of fresh air, and Nathaniel and I were just like in shock and couldn't believe that this was happening, and that this close to the genre, the stuff we love, was happening in a book. You crushed it, Ryan. You're an absolute fan of the genre, and you can see that through your writing, and you're an incredible writer. So we're super honored to have you here.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? How are you doing? How have you been? It's a busy time for sure.
Thank you for having me back on. And let me just piggyback on what you said. Like, you absolutely nailed it because, like, you guys get it. And, like, I am a big fan of the genre. I've been a big fan of the genre forever. And I could sit here and probably tell you all of my favorite TV shows, video games, whatever, and you'd smile and nod. Like, we've talked about Uncharted before, but I haven't even talked about like Firefly and like shows like that, which they happen to be bringing back right now.
I know,
Like
it's crazy.
adventure is definitely coming back. It's coming back, and it's been an uphill battle, I think, for everyone in this space. And I do kind of feel a little bit of that weight of being one of the first people to break through into like commercial fiction
Right.
with it, because it really has been just this genre that's just been beaten on and made fun of, and they keep trying, but they don't get it, and they never get it. They keep dishing us up stuff that like we get so excited about, and it just fails us every time.
Yeah, dude.
So I'm like, I definitely don't take it lightly. Like, everything that I ever do will always be like just, what you would expect from somebody who really like loves the genre, and not, what's the word? Not sell
Pandering?
out for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I got a full-time job. I'm not in this for the money. So, I'm just gonna still love doing it. But yeah, I've been super busy. I actually took a different job, a lateral job that had less responsibility. So I don't have people working for me
Nice.
anymore. I'm not like a supervisor. Like, I used to like investigate aircraft development contracts. Now I actually joined a unmanned test and evaluation squadron in the Navy as their safety department head, safety officer. So now I'm
Very
just
cool.
a dude working. It kind of feels weird being back in a Navy squadron, even though I'm not active duty anymore. I'm kind of a government civilian, but it's kind of cool in the same respect because I'm old. I'm older than most of them, so I kind of have that like older brotherly kind of feel back in the squadron. But um, it's cool because I don't have to. I have a lot less responsibility, a lot more of a focused job. So now I can kind of like free up some of that bandwidth to
Right.
write more, because writing is starting to pick up a little bit more. Um, so I moved back down to Southern Maryland, just outside of DC, with my family, where I used to live for a long time, like 7 years before. So it's really like I just moved home. Like, all
Yeah.
my friends were here, my church, like everything was here. So it's just like coming right back to like I never left. So in that respect, it's been real. I mean, shoot, we even bought a house on the same street that we used to live
That's
on. So like,
crazy.
I know, man, that it was all kind of like a God led thing, like it was just all the doors shut and everything was pointing us back. There's just no other decision I could make. And I
Right.
was like, okay, I guess we're moving back across country, which is never easy in the middle of the
Right.
winter, in the middle of a snowstorm. Like,
Yeah, this
um,
winter especially brutal.
oh, it like the nor'easter
Yeah.
of the last decade was on moving day. Of course, it was
Yeah.
on moving day.
Of course.
So it's like I just smile like when that happens because one of my faith, but also because it's like, what are you gonna do? It's like, all right,
Yeah.
like I guess I'm gonna get tougher like right now.
Yeah.
Like
That's such a
just
good mentality. That's the perfect mindset because, and you see it a lot in adventure fiction. I think it's what I resonate with a lot is just the ability to withstand and kind of pivot when difficulties come. You can
yeah,
pick that up in adventure fiction. You can pick that up in, like you said, our religious faith, being Christians. You can pick that up and hold it with you. It definitely is helpful because
yeah.
you will have those crummy circumstances, like moving day being on the nor'easter or whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah,
So
but
it's good
it's
to have.
funny. Like, I feel like I am who I am because I grew up reading this kind of fiction,
Yeah.
and it does when you're young and impressionable, like as a teenager, and you're reading people like Dirk Pitt and you're Louis L'Amour characters and stuff. You you like imprint some of that. You're like, oh, I want to be like that, or this is how he handled that situation, and your brain like stores it, and it does, and it like kind of develops you a little bit into how you're gonna react in the future when you're presented with some similar circumstances. So um yeah, I mean, I think, and then like when you write it and it comes out in the character and it's like, okay, yeah, now I'm following in that same, some kid's gonna read this. I think about that a lot actually, like um like there are some swears in here, but I don't ever put an F-bomb in my books. I don't take the Lord's name in vain in my books. There's no like gratuitous, there's no sex scenes in my books. There's violence, there's stuff like that. It's all for the story. I don't think anything
Right.
is just gratuitous like outside of that. And there's always like a moral code in the story and a theme to the book, and makes you think about morals, all of it. So I definitely take that to heart because I know that there are going to be like teenage
Right.
boys reading these books. So I definitely, and my own kids are going to read these books one day.
Right.
So like
Right.
that's kind of my final editing pass. It's like, okay, my own kids are going to ask me questions about this when they're 12. So what?
Yeah. Dude, that Nathaniel, I'm going to pass this to you too because I'm interested in your take, and I think we'll all kind of be able to riff on this. But quickly on the kid thing, that's what the first two books I wrote were just like, I don't want my kids to see, like, I don't want my
Yeah,
kids to see that. I put some stuff in
same.
there I should not have put in there. And so that was a big thing for me. Like, once I had kids and that same realization of, like, yeah, this is like, in some way, I'm espousing a philosophy in this book that I'm writing, and they're gonna be like, what is it you're trying to tell me about the world? What is it you're telling me about
Yeah,
how I should react or how things are going? So I really also have taken that to heart, and this is where I'll pass it to you, Nathaniel, as well, to hear your thoughts. Um, a lot of what we do with Veritas is, like we always say, it's like almost young adult-ish, but it's not. And I feel like what you were saying there touches on that, Ryan, where it's like we want to be we're very respectful in it of it being not pandering to like little kids. It's never trying to be like a kid's book. But yeah, we all really try to skirt away from swearing, skirt away from like immorality in a lot of ways because I know I do, and Nathaniel and Ryan, I think you both agree. Like we know that the ideal is important, and it's something that we want to like put on display in our books. So Nathaniel, if you want to hit on that, and you can
Yeah,
hop
for
back to
sure.
Ryan after that.
I think that we talk about this before on the podcast. I for sure write to entertain like 12 to 16-year-old me, like that's my target audience. And then I have two daughters, so shifting kind of the focus of thinking like these kids are going to read this one day. And one of the things that I feel like we talk about a lot with men's adventure fiction, not just being for men, being for everybody who wants to read it, is kind of the idea of like the character that you're writing should be someone that young men want to be and should be okay aspiring to be, and also young women would read about and be like, okay, if I found a man similar to this guy, it would be okay to take him home to dad, and like there wouldn't be a bunch of like sparks flying. So I think that idea for sure rings true of like, obviously you can write bad guys or characters who are more anti-heroic, and I think that those are fun, interesting thought problems. But I think at the end of the day, the real like aspirational characters for sure have to be, it's the thing where like you're pulling young men and young readers out of kind of their safe, basic world and giving them a little more excitement than they're used to. But at the same time, it's showing them how to process new things outside of their comfort zone. So I really resonate with both of what you guys were saying. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and like we talked about before, putting them in situations and making them make hard decisions, and
Right.
sometimes the wrong decision. And then it's like, well, what do they do after they've made the wrong decision?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what's, um, but I think overall it could be boiled down to something a little simpler. Like everything that I write, like my kind of mission, if you will, is I feel like there's been an erosion in general across all entertainment. Like we grew up
Mm.
with a very distinct set of, uh, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is good versus evil
Right.
used to be the norm. There was a bad guy. You knew he was a bad guy. He knew he was a bad guy,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, good and evil exists in reality. And I feel like over the last 30 years, there's been this like push to just erode the fact that there even
Mm.
is a line between good and evil, and that it's more gray, and that every bad guy really thinks they're the good guy. And there are no real bad people. They all just, because those are like tropes that they teach in creative writing now. It's like, oh no, every bad guy is not a bad guy. They have some relatable quality that you need to lean into, and they really think that they're doing something good, and they're just misunderstood. And I just wholeheartedly reject that premise. There is black and white, good and evil, dark and
Right.
light. There is no gray area. It gets gray as you get up to the line, but then there is a line. And
Right.
Yeah.
And I think establishing that right off the bat, there are bad dudes. There are bad people that are doing bad things because they want to do bad things.
Yeah.
And that is where like the real villain comes in, and that's why you need a hero. And then that's why you have today all these like anti-heroes and all this just weirdism, and you're not satisfied because you want like four Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to kick Shredder's butt because he
Yeah.
just wants to take over the world. Like that's what you grow up wanting. You pick up a stick when you're outside and you're fighting trees
Right.
because you're like, why? They want to take my, it's just,
Yeah.
it's intrinsically inside of us that exists. I believe from my worldview that it does exist. And I
Right.
think that everything that I write, just establishing that good and evil right off the bat is very important. And I think that especially in adventure fiction, it hits home even more
Yeah.
because you definitely need it. You definitely need it. And if you look back to every adventure story, no matter what format you've ever liked, and just think about it for a second, there was a very defined, evil bad guy and a very defined good guy, and they
Yeah.
may have varied about how they went about it, but the overall like moral position of both of them is I'm opposing you, for a good reason, and I'm opposing you for a bad reason. So that's just kind of like blanket. I approach everything I write from that's like the big picture lens, and then it goes down from there.
It's
It's
utterly
fantastic.
fantastic, dude. Like that right there should be the pitch to buy everything this guy writes, obviously. Like he obviously like that is
I wish.
dude, it touches on the heart that me and Nathaniel have both figured out we shared, which is like you said, grabbing the stick outside. There's a part of our writing, I feel like all of us, that is the continuation of play as a kid, where you're like out there just like,
Like,
being the hero and doing the whole thing. And I find that so fun. And that's what
yeah,
writing should be and storytelling should be. That's the other thing
yeah,
we've gotten away from in storytelling is like, why is everything so bleak and dark and we're
Right.
deconstructing and we're doing like you said, what happened to the good conquering evil? And we're seeing a bit of a rise in that again. Like you said, you're doing it now in the fiction world of bringing adventure fiction back. And I know recently I've been obsessed with that Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Like that show
Ooh.
was uplifting and it had like no, it wasn't morally complex. It was like he's a good guy who like kind of Superman vibes of like a big Boy Scout who wants to do right. And
Yeah.
it fires me up so much and it makes me feel so good. And good stories are like that kind of fuel for your soul and your heart and your mind. And to just dump in all of these deconstructions and like you said, morally gray characters and anti-heroes. That's not a great content diet for me, at least. I get super
Mm.
bummed out about
Yeah.
the world, and I feel worse about my position and the future. It's not what I want. That's why I love this genre, is because it's like filling up the tank with really good fuel and stamina to get through the hard stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. And then, like, so I approach it from that perspective. And then from there, I feel like most people have like an agenda of what they're writing. Like I tend to write from theme. So, when I come up with an idea, I'll be like, all right, what's the theme of this, what's the theme of the book? And a lot of times the theme is um, maybe something like, in Blood and Treasure, the theme of kind of this theme of living with regret, this theme of memento mori, which is like remembering your own mortality. And
Mhm.
I think, when you look back at the garden, the first lie to mankind was that you shall not surely die. And
Mm.
basically telling humanity that um, you can do whatever you want and live a life that you don't have to be responsible for because you're not going to die. And that's what people truly think. That's what you think when you're young too. You're
Yeah,
you're growing up and
for
you're like,
sure.
I don't have to answer for anything. Like I'm never going to be old and I'm never going to like die and all this like that. So you live a life that has no consequence. And like that theme in the book of Memento Mori being like, no, you focus on your own mortality. You will die. You are going to have to answer for the things that you do in this life.
Right.
And when you make that one of your focuses, um, you face all those lingering regrets and guilt. You face them head on and you rectify everything. And you live a life of walking forward and ahead and not kind of dwindling in your own self pity and and so like that was like a theme in the book, right? And it might have been a deeper theme, but I also always try and pull stories out of the Bible because like the best book ever written, in my opinion, is Bible,
Amen.
and it has every story of human nature in it.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
like
for sure.
the whole Old Testament is just a story of human nature. So like you read through the Old Testament and you're going to find every single kind of bad guy, every single kind of good guy, and all their faults and traits. So I just try and find a story from there that is kind of amplified by my story, and then
Yeah,
I use it as an archetype to build my story around because not only are you getting to subliminally put biblical stories into a work of fiction that people don't even know that they're reading, like secular people won't even know that they're reading a biblical story of Joseph in Blood and Treasure. Like they won't even know
Mm.
that they're reading the story of Joseph from Genesis. The character Mojdazadi was built off of Joseph.
Yeah.
And so like, the whole
That
story
makes
of
sense.
Joseph is that he had horrible things happen to him. He was betrayed by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He was put in prison. It was just one more awful thing after another. And then all of a sudden, he was in a position to help save all of God's people when a giant famine came. And that's exactly who Mojda is in the story of Blood and Treasure. So it's kind of a big spoiler alert for that one. But um, uh, so like I built the whole story around that. And the reason another reason why I do that is because the stories in the Bible are true and real about human nature, so they resonate with you. So they're going to resonate in fiction. So if you use them as an archetype to
Hmm.
build fiction around this fantastical story of, it has you would never know that it's a Bible story. It's got orbital satellites and all this like
right.
stuff
Yeah.
going on, but at the heart of it, it's that same story from Genesis, and so it's going to hit the same as long as I don't betray the general framework of that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still going to hit. So I try and do that with everything that I write. So in the Ghost City, there's also um, a whole theme about um, uh, the living words, like thoughts and
Yeah.
words are alive and they have power, and that they affect not only how you think and feel, but how other people think and feel. And then we kind of explore like, well, why is that? Like, you can feel it, you can think it, you can believe it. People can test it, people can like scientifically prove it, but like, what does that actually look like in the world? And so we have a little fun with it in the Ghost City, but that's like a theme throughout. And I thought it was really fun to think about when I found that there was like a bunch of science that kind of like proved biblical beliefs, so I kind of fused them together into the Ghost City.
You're a mad genius, dude. Truly.
Just have
Ghost
fun,
City.
man. I'm just having fun.
I was able to read an advanced copy of Ghost City, and it is fantastic. So,
Cool, man.
super cool. I really enjoyed it. It's cool how you weave a story together. Like there's so many different pieces moving, and you handle that masterfully. I feel like there's a lot of times where I read many POVs and I'm dragging for one or two of them, but I think you do a good job of keeping the information flowing at a fast pace and keeping each character's arc really engaging. And like Luke was saying, that's just such a cool thing. When you said Joseph, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like it took me a second because I was thinking, all right, well, is Ethan the Joseph character? I was like, oh no, that, and then it clicked, and then you were saying, it's like, oh yeah, obviously. So that's super cool that you're weaving this tapestry beneath the surface level. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I built the Ghost City around the story of Jonah.
Okay.
And if you kind of, having read it, if you kind of dwell on that for a second, without giving away spoilers and stuff, you can kind of see a little bit of that. So that's just what I try and do, and that's kind of cool. I don't really have like a formula per se, but I don't know, I just kind of have developed what I thought this series was going to be, the Blood and Treasure series. And when they told me to do a second book, it would have been really easy to just swap out Mojda for another special ops person and do it all again, like the same book. And I was like, nope, like I'm going to do something as different as I possibly can and claim the other, this is left field, Blood and Treasures in left field. I'm going to put something in right field and like try and claim the whole space in between for the series.
I love that. That's awesome.
Really cool.
Because it's what if they're like, what's the trajectory of the series? And I'm like, the trajectory is all over the place. Like, I want to be able to write about dinosaurs if I want to. Like, I don't, I want, because there's a little bit of sci-fi, there's paranormal, there's, there's adventure thriller, there's history, there's high tech. So I want to be able to write about anything. I want to be able to write about literally anything. So, from anything from The Hunt for Red October to Jurassic Park is going to be in play.
That's awesome.
And then I also wanted to show that, it's not just the same. Blood and Treasure was very much a gang drama, lots of characters. And I didn't want to be stuck always having to write the same group of characters over and over and over again. So I kept them in, but because I didn't want people to think, oh, they're never coming back or whatever. So what I did was just kind of move some characters to the forefront who were a little more in the background. Like Lana Foster is more of a background character. She's like right in the forefront of the book. Bob Moretti was right in the front of Blood and Treasure. Now he's like a little more in the background. Hank and Dale were like very much sidekick characters. They have cameos in the Ghost City. So I let you know that they're still around. They're still kind of fun. They drop their one-liners and stuff. But I introduced some new characters and just try and give you the same feel that like every time we write a book in this series, it's just going to be a new, fresh adventure that you don't need to have a chronological order for,
Right. Which I would say to that point, you masterfully handled that as well, in the sense of like, we talk about this all the time. We had a really fun episode with Terrence about this concept of the series character, right? Where you want to give the people the things that they loved about the last one, but you also want to knock their socks off with something new. And so going into Ghost City, it was interesting to see how you were going to handle that. And it felt like it was in the same series, but it did not feel like a copycat. It was drastically different enough that I was like, wow, this is engaging. It wasn't like I didn't at any point feel, man, I wish this was more like Blood and Treasure. And I also didn't feel like, man, this nothing like the last book. Like it was an interesting combo of like this.
Right.
He's given me new stuff, but it's still the same character that I grew to know and love through the first one. It wasn't
I
jarring or anything.
I knew that people really wanted more information about Ethan Cain, and I
Hmm.
wasn't ready to give them like everything. Like it's
Right.
going to be a trickle, it's going to be a trickle with him. So what I decided to do is make this a very much Ethan Cain centric book. He's
Yeah.
alone a lot more in this
Yeah. Yeah.
book, a little bit, or he's with a smaller group of people, more isolated. So you get to see a little bit more of him, his thought process, and not that you didn't
Right.
see it before, but like it's just he's a little more in the forefront of the
Right.
story. It's a little dark. It's a little darker. The book
Hmm.
isn't it. It still has some joking but it's a little bit of a darker overtone because the stakes are a little more sinister and serious, I think.
Right.
And his mission in this one is a little bit different. In Blood and Treasure, he kind of stumbled upon something and he just kind of fell into it. In this one, he does kind of stumble into something a little bit, but he kind of does a little bit of it on his own, and then
Yeah.
the rest of it, he's kind of when to not really give away spoilers, but Lana is doing a story. She goes out to Antarctica to interview someone, and she doesn't come back. And he finds out that she was providing information to Bob Moretti at the Joint Interagency Task Force South about a particular person who they think was running a transnational criminal organization. So when Ethan finds out about that, he decides to when no help is on the way for her, he's definitely going,
Right.
and he has no idea what he's getting himself into. So it's a little bit of a different way he gets into the problem. I wanted it to be a far flung location that
Yeah.
you don't really, not a lot of books are in Mongolia, not a lot of books are in Antarctica, or they are very like they're in Antarctica for like a little bit of time. Um,
Right.
but I did a ton of research about Antarctica to make sure I got it um, as close to right as I could for my story.
Right.
But yeah, so I really wanted to just come out swinging and also make the way that the book was structured a little bit different too. So like the hallmarks of the series, like the prologue opened very similar to Blood and Treasure. So like the prologue opened with a big international incident that was not Ethan Cain, but
Right.
that was going to be the impetus that for everything. Same as in Blood and Treasure, it opened with Mojang Tati and the space station. The space station blows up. There's this huge problem. It has nothing to do with our main character, but has implications for the entire story. So in Ghost City, it opens up in Antarctica with the McMurdo station chief Felix Gray, and there are these mysterious holes the size of baseball stadiums that are just popping up all over the Antarctic ice sheet, Western Antarctic ice sheet, and they can't explain it. Teams have gone missing, falling into the ice, and he recovers a laptop computer that seems very important to them for reasons unknown, and they take off in the helicopter, and they just see these holes just popping up literally, in the time it took them to land, there's just more of these holes everywhere and they can't figure it out. So that's kind of like how it opens up. And then we cut to Ethan Cain, and he's not on a kind of recovery job. He's on his normal job. So you get to see a little bit of him doing what he normally does for his job, which he's on the Mekong River with a new character friend, Ian Rutledge, and they are mapping the
Yeah.
seafloor or the river bottom of the Mekong River for a gas pipeline installation. And there's an alternate thread where some nefarious sand traffickers are doing something upriver in the Mekong, and there's a problem. It causes an ecological disaster that completely diverts the Mekong River through Thailand and completely dries up the Mekong River in Vietnam almost instantaneously.
Yeah,
And
dude, that was crazy.
in so when the river dries up, so it's almost like a reverse, tsunami in a way. And when it dries up, it's 50 something feet deep. They end up finding this 35-foot structure like embedded in the mud. And when they investigate, it ends up being an old ship, an old Mongol ship, Chinese Mongol ship. and inside are two journals from Marco Polo, and
That's so
from
good.
there,
That's
um,
so good.
yeah. So Marco Polo famously did not actually write his book Travels. It was secondhand knowledge that was copied down while he was in prison. Um,
Oh wow.
and on his deathbed, he said that so he didn't actually write it at all. It was just he told a bunch of stories in prison, and this guy wrote it down and published it under his name. So on his deathbed, he said, "I did not tell half of what I saw, for I fear I would not be believed." And
Yeah.
so that was that. That's um, kind of where we're going with these
With
journals,
the
and
half he did see.
it, yeah. So we end up. So it ends up taking Ethan Cain on a journey that spans the globe to ancient Mongolia to modern Mongolia, um, and as far as Antarctica, on a journey that's going to span as much of time as it does history and the globe. Um, and Ethan Cain is going to come face to face with the edge of memory, and he is going to see just how steep the drop is.
That's
What a
so
pitch.
sick. Yeah, that was great. That's great. Dude, that's the other thing about your books is that I feel like there's a lot of history and other just avenues of real life research that goes into it. So you kind of walk away
Yep.
from these books feeling more informed and kind of smarter than when I walked in for myself personally. And like for you on that end of things, like is this stuff that you are curious about and then you start pulling a thread in your own personal life, or do you go in with an intent to research certain things? Like what is the research side of what you do? Because I am the worst at research. My stuff is airborne.
It's
I just make it stuff.
it's it's both, like so first off, like when I first started writing this character, it
Mhm.
very much wasn't the flavor of what I would call a blood and treasure thriller as it is right now. Um, it was kind of just a hodgepodge of, me trying to figure it out. But now that I hate to use the word formula, but I definitely feel like these books I've developed some kind of locking elements that come together from old and new and tech and ancient. And the fun of it for me is I get very interested about all different things, and I love reading history. And so anytime I see something interesting, like a place like Karakoto, or um, like I learn about, that no one ever found Genghis Khan's burial place, or I learn about that people get cremated and their bodies are turned into tattoo ink, and like just like weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just start correlating things together, and I'm just like, okay, I got my ancient, I got my modern, I got this, over here. And so for the Ghost City, I had all these pieces, but nothing was really coming together. And then my brother sent me this like article one day about sand traffickers. And
Dude,
I was like,
which quick
what?
sidebar? Yeah. When you had that in there, I was like, is this fiction?
And then you
Like, is
Google
that
it. And then you
I
Google it. Yeah.
yeah. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. So
So
when I
but
when
keep
I
going.
found out that sand trafficking was actually a trans criminal organization that's
That's
huge, and I had
crazy.
never even heard about this. I
Yeah.
used to fight these organizations, and I never heard of sand trafficking before. So I did a ton of research on it, and I was like, holy crap. Like I called my brother and I was like, dude, you just gave me the puzzle piece that made the entire book come together, because
So good.
then that's where my brain starts linking other things that I knew about. And so like my brain like links the headlines together, and I'm like, oh, this
Right.
this could work with this. Then I do a bunch of research, find out what's real about it, and then I
Right.
just try and get them as close as possible, and then I use fiction to just knit them together. And
Right.
and then if it doesn't fit, if it's just like kind of janky and like, then I break it off, and I sand it down, and I just try and
Yeah.
because it's close enough. It's close enough. It's gonna
Right.
work for the
Right.
story. Like,
Yeah.
and so I don't really. There's some people who bog themselves down, and it has to be so perfect, and I'm like, no, it does not. It just had like the who's the writer of Sherlock Holmes? Oh gosh, it's killing
Conan
me right
Doyle.
now. Conan Doyle. Conan Doyle famously said that you need to have the what did he say? You need to have like the illusion of reality, um,
Interesting.
or it needs to be. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something like it basically has to be 80%. Is basically what paraphrasing. Um, so I definitely take that to heart, because I think it makes for a more fun story. Um,
Yeah.
but I do pain myself a lot to try and figure out how I can weave them together into the plot. But for this one, it was just a lot of fun because when it clicks, I get very excited,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
just like, I get like very pumped about it, and then I have to figure out how I'm going to write the story to like tell that without losing you. And like in this book, I knew I had to set it up in a different kind of way, and I was really worried that I was going to like lose the reader with this kind of slower entry. So I had to find a way to make it not slow and more mysterious and interesting. Um, so,
Yeah.
it pushed me as a writer to figure that out. And then I decided to do something different too. Like in the book, there are these tremors that are shaking the Western Antarctic ice sheet. And right off the bat, and when you start the book in Antarctica, they're already aware of these tremors. They're getting worse. They're getting bigger, longer. There's this theme of frequency and music. And so I decided to build the whole book literarily like one of these tremors, which is basically like a symphony orchestra. It starts out really low and deep, and it builds into this like crescendo finale. So I did that with the book. It starts off very, I wouldn't say slow, but it starts off with physically longer chapters that are a little denser.
Right.
And then as the book progresses towards the end, the chapters get almost like a half a page. At the end, they get very short and less dense. So it kind of has this crescendo effect to the end. And I tried really hard to make that work because I wanted to give the reader this sense of this building up.
Yeah.
And some people kind of notice it, some people don't. Um, but I don't know. I'm curious, Nate, you notice anything like that when you're reading
Yeah.
it?
It's super interesting because I am strictly an entertainment focused guy when it comes to any sort of storytelling. Like that's just how my mind works. I remember watching Parasite, and I watched it when it was super popular, and I was like, okay, that was fine. I was entertained the whole time. And then these people started telling me all the things that went into it, like how anytime a character crosses a moral line, they also cross a physical line. I was like, yeah, I was never going to get that. So
Interesting.
being here on the opposite side of this with you, like when you bring up the Joseph thing, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And when you're saying this now, like it's um it's like reworking the story in my mind, like as you were
Sure.
describing that, it's like, oh yeah, that
Well,
makes a ton of
I'll throw
sense.
another one at you too.
Oh boy. I'm
So,
ready.
and this won't be a spoiler if you haven't read the book yet. It just, once you already read the book, it just makes you think differently. So, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite books of all time. And Michael Crichton did something really cool in that book, which most people don't notice. So he has this. So the movie totally different. The actual book is broken into the 7 iterations of chaos theory. So iteration 1 through 7. So there's like 7 parts to the book, and
That's
each
wild.
um, iteration of chaos theory is a part of the theory that basically is a domino effect. That one seemingly insignificant event, which someone wouldn't think is chaos, would eventually lead to a couple different things that would get out of whack, out of joint, and then those things would basically create an instability that would lead to mistakes, that would lead to a huge event that would be a problem, right? So he
Interesting.
breaks the book into these 7 things, and each part of the book he writes like that whole section of the book is like that chaos incident.
What?
So
That's crazy.
he breaks the whole story into it. Even the character arc of Hammond, who is different in the book. He actually dies in the book of his own hubris, but like he is the embodiment of chaos theory. So like he's like the character in it. So anyways, like Michael Crichton was a genius, and I was like, I want to do something like that. Like I love that, and even if nobody notices, I want to do it. So this book, The Ghost City, is all about quantum physics, frequency. Words and thoughts have a life force to them, and what does that mean? And so I started looking into quantum physics, how things are quantumly entangled, how synchronicity works, how deja vu, how like if your thought. So one of the themes in the book is if you have a thought, right? It's everything is a frequency and electrical impulse in your brain. So if you have any thought whatsoever, you can pick that up on an EKG. So if you can pick it up, or something on an EKG, you can pick it up on a EEG. So if you can pick up signals from your brain from a magnet that's not even touching your body, then that means that the energy that your body is creating for that thought is going somewhere, and it's not necessarily your body. Now, physics tells you that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. So if your mind is creating a thought and that thought is leaving your head, where is that energy going and what is it doing? Now, if I say a word to you and that word makes you feel good, right? That's what the Bible teaches us, right? Like I speak good words to you, and those words sink down into your body and make your whole body feel good, right? They feed you. So there's good energy and then there's bad energy. So there was this scientist in Japan who studied water crystals with this good energy and this bad energy. And he formed this whole theory. And now I will give away parts of the book. But what I did in the book with quantum entanglement was I quantumly entangled the entire book. So with itself. So anytime that there is a character, event, place setting, person, thing that happens in the book, it has a mirror opposite, or sorry, it has a mirror match or a 180 degree opposite somewhere in the book. So like for instance, I can give examples. There are literally thousands.
That's crazy.
Dude, it's so sick.
So yeah, the discussion ability of this is literally off the rails. But like one example is Ethan in in Vietnam, Ethan Cain finds a boat, an old boat, an ancient boat that's very large, and that he enters. He enters this boat, and then it fills with sand, and he has to escape. When he goes to Antarctica, he enters a very large modern boat fills with water, and he has to escape.
That's crazy.
And I do that with everything. So there's an evil character. So there's two bad characters, Bingwen and Saran. Both characters are burned and horribly disfigured on the face only. Ethan Cain is horribly disfigured from being burned on his whole body except his face. Both characters try and kill Ethan. Both characters are killed, but not by Ethan.
Crazy.
So there's like a whole bunch of very intentional things, and I was hoping that it would be when I tell people who've read the book about it, it could be like a fun discussion thing where other people can find ones that I did like 14 drafts, and every time I just tried to put as many in. I just knitted them in as everywhere I possibly could.
Yeah, it's amazing because I was thinking my question immediately was going to be how long did this take you to write, do you think? But before that, this is a pitch to read this with a friend or like a book club situation because, dude, the literary merit, people look at literary fiction and think that's where like all the literary merit stands, but the men's adventure fiction does have literary merit, and this conversation is an example of that. What you're doing is an example of that. This is great literature and the same type of stuff that someone writing literary fiction would do, you're doing in adventure stories. And that crossroads is my favorite stuff out there. I absolutely love that. So read this with a friend, it sounds like, and get these discussions going because there's so much there.
After I did it, my agent and my editor, I had readers before them, but when I turned it in, I didn't say a word to them about it. And after they read it, we have like our big editorial discussions and stuff. And I point blank after all the editorial discussions were done, they were like, "Do you have any questions for us?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, did you happen to notice anything interesting about the book? Like maybe some scenes that were kind of similar or anything? And they're like, "No." And then I slowly like spoon fed them this whole thing that I did. So it was like them not knowing, like having any inkling of reading it the first time without me telling them, was like my confirmation. It was like, yes, I did it. Even if it was just for me, like I was like, I did it. Because that, 20 years from now, I could just be like, yeah, I put all that stuff in the book.
Right. The iceberg theory, dude. Hemingway, you're just putting so much under there. onto the surface. And
I'm just trying to maximize the book. There was, they're gonna let me write a book and publish it. Like,
yeah, make the most of it.
Yeah.
Make it
You're gonna
so
have
deep.
people talking
Reread
about it
after
for
reread
years.
after reread.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
keep going down the road. How long did it take you to research, write, and kind of get this to
So,
completion?
to be completely honest, this book was like 5 years in the making, and only because I wrote a version of this book, like the second book I ever wrote.
Hmm.
But I wasn't that good of a writer, and it was called Many Other Different Things. It actually was a finalist in the Clive Cussler writing competition.
Very cool.
But I wasn't like, I think I had something going on, and generally like an ability, but it was not what these were. And I shelved it, and it was never going to go anywhere. But there were some elements in that book, mainly Antarctica, and some elements that ended up being in the end of the book that were really like I liked. I was like, they were very good action and good like scenes. And I was like trying to come up with the second book. And I was like, man, I really wish I could do Antarctica, but I already wrote about it. And then someone was like, well, I mean, that's your book. Like, you can do whatever you want. And then Mark Rainey gave me some of the best advice I've ever had. I asked him, like, at dinner one time, just, he had mentioned that he had a lot of old stories that he, put a lot of time and effort into. And he was like, but they weren't publishable. Like, he was a better writer now, and they just weren't, his caliber of what he wanted to stamp his name on anymore. And I was like, I have the same problem. I was like, what do you do with all those great, he was like, you mine them like an auto body, like a couple of beater cars or park cars that you have, like, he's like, you take every character that was good, every line that was good, every action scene that was good, and it doesn't have to be for the same book either. He's like, you just cherry pick what you need until it is just a skeleton of a book that you can throw away. And I was like, he changed everything when he said that, because I didn't look at those old books as like failures anymore, like clinging to them. I was like, oh, that's just material. That is just material sitting there that I can take what I want. So I went back into that book and I was like, okay, I want this Antarctica like set piece, and I want this action scene, and I want that thread, and I'll take this character. Actually, I'm going to take both of these characters and meld them into one, because I didn't know what I was doing then, and I know now, like, this is all one character. And I was like, so I took all that stuff, and then I looked at it differently. I was like, okay, this is a blood and treasure thriller now. I need a couple more elements. So I started rebuilding the whole story. And so I almost want to say, so I can't really say I rewrote that book. Because it is nothing like that book. I wrote a whole new book, but I borrowed a lot of stuff, and like all the Antarctica stuff, I had already done research for that, like way back years ago.
Yeah.
Tons of research. And I had friends that were stationed there for a year as doctors and had flown in there and stuff. So I had a lot of good info about it. And I read a ton of books about people who had, like, skied across Antarctica and stuff. And I actually have become friends with Felicity Aston. And she was going to be blurbing the book, but we don't have galleys yet, but she is going to be providing some comments for the book, but which is kind of cool because she's cameoed in the book. Yeah, so I did a ton of research, absolute ton of research in this book. And so it was kind of years in the making. But when I came to writing it, the story was so well formed in my mind. I spent a lot of time in front of a really big whiteboard, like just working out all the details. And I put a list of all, like, the hallmarks of the series that I want to make sure I hit. And I try and make sure that those are in there somewhere. And so I build the story, making sure, like, so I'm like, okay, my opening has got to be something like this. And so I try and find where the core of the story, open it on that hook, and then build it all kind of around that. But I spend a lot of time in front of the whiteboard, making sure everything's correct. And then I go back into my research. Once I outline it, I go back into the research and go through again. Because now that you know the story, it's like, now you need to dive into, like, the parts that, you maybe need more information about. Right. So yeah, it was a labor of love, but I wrote the book very quickly when it actually came time to write it. I think I started it in September and I finished it by Christmas.
Very cool. That's a
Before Blood and
big
Treasure.
book.
Before Blood and Treasure was published. Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool.
Do the go ahead, Nathaniel. I don't want to cut you off.
I was just gonna say that's so. The whole like outline idea there is super interesting because to see that you're not writing in a vacuum, you know, like the whole idea about hallmarks you want to hit, all of that stuff. That's really interesting to me. So you're not only like outlining book B or book 2, you're outlining whole series. I think that that's super cool to have
I
the
try to
vision.
build. Yeah, I hate to use the word brand, but like I wanted the reader to know, because the second book is going to tell you what the series is going to be about. So I wanted the
Right.
reader to know, okay, this kind of thing was in the first book, so this is a hallmark of the series now.
Right,
Like
right, right.
even stupid things like talking to his assistant Nancy on the phone, um, or like something about his cat.
Yeah.
Like those to me were like little light moments from Blood and Treasure that I was like, okay, I'm gonna make these kind of things that are always going to be in these books in some way, and so it could be little things like that or big thematic things. But I definitely am thinking about the reader experience, and because I hate series that don't do that.
Right.
So I I want the reader to have some things that they look forward to, and then other things that they just, because here's my theory on that. If you're reading a book and you know a couple little things that are coming, they're kind of like comfort things for you. You can grab onto them and you can hang on to them, and you can be like, okay, I know what I'm getting into because this is a familiar house that I'm in.
Right.
I've been here before. I've had dinner here before. I'm not going to be all awkward. I know where to hang my coat. Like all that kind of stuff is out of the way because I'm giving the reader those things to cling on to, the familiarity, so that when I take you on a completely different journey than you were on the last time, you're a little more trusting that like I've got you.
Right.
That's
Right.
kind of the theory there. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I mean, we'll see.
Well, it makes me think like if you give someone a sequel that's so different they don't recognize it, then why would they continue to? They might as well just be reading a different author, you know. So I think that
Right.
you're 100% on the money there. Of like, and that's what I really liked was this was a different adventure. This was a different experience, but it maintained the energy. You know, like I didn't think like, oh, this isn't a Ryan Pote book. This is some other guy. You know, it was for sure a blood and treasure thriller. So hats off to you on that.
Thank you.
What were you saying earlier? I was interested to hear that.
I mean, that point is probably long gone, but I think it's impressive and important to. What I was going to get at was that it's impressive and important to keep writing and writing and writing, and never, like you said, it can always come, that will serve you, whether you think it's good, bad, in the middle. Like just keep writing and completing things, and that will improve your writing skills. And to Ryan's point here, you can always return to them and pick them for what they're worth later, when you are the writer you want to be or feel like you need to be for the project. So I think that was the point I wanted to hit on. Was it's a good thing to just be always writing and pull back some of the judgment on yourself, like, oh, this isn't good enough, because maybe parts of it will be good enough for you down the line. If you just don't quit, you'll get to that point where you have that that ability. Because I'm not the writer I want to be yet, but I'm definitely way better than when I started. You know what I mean? If you keep doing this, you get more skills, you learn more lessons. And right now, the stuff you're talking about really resonates with me because that's the stuff I'm trying to figure out of like, how do you continue a series character without, because to your point, there's a promise between you and the reader. They're expecting something. Like we go to Indiana Jones because we want to see certain things, or maybe I want to play Uncharted. It's because I want to do certain things. Like we have these key things. We want that feeling to be there. And so if it's missing, like you guys have been saying, that's no good. That's like I'm not getting what I came to this series for. And I think that's something that we have been talking about for a while, because my sequel, Odyssey of Fire, I was like, this is so different than Fire in the Tall Grass, and I hope it's not too different where it's jarring. So I'm also trying to navigate that same thing where it's like you got to keep the spirit, the heart, the kind of to your point,
It's
like the
difficult.
tropes or something.
Sometimes too, you grow as a writer, and like the character grows into what they're supposed to be, and
Yeah.
then maybe it does change a little bit. For me, I had the fortune, I should say, of not having my first two Ethan Cain books published.
Yeah.
Actually, the first three. So I had a lot of time with this character to develop him. And if the first two had gotten published, it would not be what it is right now, which I think is a lot more fun, deeper. So I would have been boxed into a very like Clancy, and their marketing is like Clancy Cussler-esque, but I would have been boxed very much into that, and the whole like speculative element that I've been able to play with in the books that make it really fun wouldn't have been there. So
Right.
I mean, everything happens for a reason, and like you're definitely going to get better the more you write, for
Right.
sure, and like
Yeah.
your ability to see what you're doing. So it's one thing to write something. I used to just write something and just be like, "Oh wow, that was cool," but I didn't know how I was doing something or why I was doing something. Like I didn't start writing with a goal of how to affect the reader, and now I do. Like when I'm on that whiteboard, I'm like, I want the reader's like state of mind. I want them to be here. Like if I'm guiding you through the maze, I want you to take this left, and I want you to be here, and this is where I want you to be. And that's kind of how I'm thinking now the whole time. And so like you just get your awareness grows. Anytime you do something for a really long time, your awareness gets bigger to the point where you can see what the reader is experiencing as you're writing it and manipulating their emotions and their thoughts. Like case in point, I learned this technique. I don't remember who I learned it from, but everything's bought or borrowed, stolen, copied. Yeah. So you can just use language in a book. So if you have like a scene coming up, like in Blood and Treasure, like let's say with lions, right? There's a scene with lions. If you go back through the book before so the human mind, it's about 7 times to memorize something, but about 3 times you have to hear it before you recall it. But anytime you say a word, someone's reading it, your eyes are going over it, it's putting a picture in someone's mind. So I knew I had a scene with lions coming up. So I used imagery 3 times leading up to those chapters. So like in the 100 pages before that of lion imagery, using putting the word lions in there or like whatever, and it plants the word in your mind and brings a familiarity to it. And then when you finally get to the scene with lions, it's almost like there's been an anticipation for it the whole time. It's really subtle, but like, that's the kind of detail I'm going for.
So sick. I know you have a very important job in the military, but you need to instead teach me writing all the time. That's your job. I feel like I learned so much from you
Bro,
already.
I am literally just regurgitating everything else that I've learned from other people. Like I am so I just signed up actually for a screenwriting course.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is just you've never figured it out. You can always get better. There's always a way. And if you stop writing for a long time, you're going to forget everything that you learned. So you got to stay in it. And, you don't have to write every day. I definitely take breaks in between projects, sometimes a month or two.
Right.
But you got to have, and I like to have like a cleansing palette project between books. Like I did an audio drama. I did like a screenplay. I did a children's choose your own adventure kind of book with a friend.
So fun.
It's something different to mix it up,
Yeah.
get your flexing the muscles, but there's no pressure, there's no stress. It's just fun. It's just I'm figuring this out. I think that's really important because every creative needs to do something for fun where they feel free. And when you're doing a book that you committed yourself to, you kind of don't feel even though you love it, you maybe don't feel as free. There's a little bit of pressure there, even if it's in your own head. So doing like one of those freeing projects just kind of lets you, open up your, just go for a jog and just kind of, you don't really know where you're going. You just run in for like an hour.
I do think that's supremely important. Just like you said, the kind of pressure-free version of the writing where there is no audience that is looming in the back of your head. Like this going to happen, and they know the date that it's happening, and like all that. You're just kind of like able to
Yeah.
write for fun, almost
Yep.
like just complete fun,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah. It cleanses the palate, so then when you get back on like a disciplined approach for the other one, it's just
Yeah.
you're ready to do it again. Yeah.
I was thinking about that whole concept of like, I don't like getting to a point where I'm like, oh man, I gotta write. I like to be like, man, I can't wait to write. So that idea of it's either some serious mental gymnastics to just con yourself into believing that I'm doing this only because I want to, and there are no dates looming over my head like 3 weeks out for the first draft being submitted. That's for sure not there. But
Yeah.
or it is what you said. I think that that's really smart of having something that you have to kind of look forward to. Like, all right, I get through this the actual like work of writing. Because for me, a lot of times writing is not challenging. I like putting words to the page. Like that's fun for me. But the challenging part is doing it in a timely manner, making sure that I'm being consistent with the story, all this stuff.
Yes.
Or if I ever plot something out too far ahead, I get very bored with it. So making sure that I'm attacking it with the same like vim and vigor that I would something that I have no idea what's coming next, but to have that idea of like, all right, I'm going to get through the actual like hard mental taxing work part, and then I'm going to have something that's freeing where I can just do whatever I want. I think that that's a really cool idea. I mean, I was talking with one of my friends. We've just been on a push with the stuff for Men's Adventure Fiction May, the stuff with the Veritas duels we're doing, which we're super pumped about. And I finished off some stuff for that, and there was still other stuff that I need to be doing. And I was like, I'm free, and it wasn't true, but I had for sure the mindset of like, I'm free, but I knew there was other stuff. So to somehow find a way to have that feeling constantly, even when you're up against deadlines, I don't know if it's possible, but I think I really like what you were saying of building in times where you can unlock that feeling and just let it run.
Yeah. For me, it's been a chance to grow in between, do something different, get out a story that maybe is in my head and try out something new. And sometimes it helps to write a different character, and then when you go back to your character, it just doesn't feel as stale.
Like returning to an old friend.
But not that it feels stale. It's that sometimes you get stuck writing. Sometimes you'll write the same line you wrote a couple times about, the description or something for the character in another book. And you're like, okay, no, like, I need to refresh and come into this story like it's my first book. So I like to just write every book like it's my first book. I'm trying to, I'm not phoning it in, right? Like it's my first book. You don't have to know anything else. And so, having a cleansing palette thing, like I did a sci-fi audio drama, and it was so fun because I did not know how to write an audio drama. I knew how to write screenplays, but I was like, how do I write an audio drama? So I just learned how to write it, and it was so much fun. And I took a story that I thought would play well in audio. And then I didn't just outline the story. I had like, the rough, overarching outline of what the story was going to be. But I actually wrote the outline for the story for audio. So like I built the story, like this scene has to be this because you're only hearing it. So you can't do these other things, so I built it for audio. It was so much fun. It was fun to think that way and write that way. And it was a lot of fun. And like, it's still a story that I have. It's not in a book format, but now it's like the best. Even if it doesn't, there's a possibility it could get made right now. But if it doesn't get made, like it's still the best outline I could ever have for turning it into a book.
Seriously. And again, back to any kind of writing is going to improve your writing. So it's all. It's never not for naught. You're getting something out of writing at all times.
Yeah. I
love that.
So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, guys. I mean, we got to get together in person that I'm closer and do some cigars.
Yeah, we for sure do.
Agree.
I wanted to ask you a little bit though before we sign off about Skyring Water. Fantastic!
Nice.
It's the new release from Louis L'Amour and Beau L'Amour. Talk
So cool.
talk as much as you want about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so Bo reached out to me to read an early version of it, and we linked up through you guys, and that's been so amazing because we've become friends, and we've been kind of like helping each other out industry wise, like from a business perspective, but also just so we're actually gonna be teaming up for the releases of our books. So Ghost City
Cool.
comes out in June. Skyring Water comes out, I think, in May. But we've been going back and forth all week. We're going to be doing an event together, I think, in the DC area, and possibly somewhere else. Um, but yeah, he's a great guy, and he
He's so cool.
took his father's last manuscript that he was working on for a book that was a Cold War kind of thriller, and kind of like, he wrote westerns and stuff like that, but he also wrote like Last of the Breed, which is like not like anything else he had written, and it was very much so. All of his short adventure stories are very much like Last of the Breed, like Diamond to Jeru.
Yeah.
You have all the Pirates of the Air, the Pirates of the Sky with Turk Madden, like Ponga Jim, like all these really cool adventure characters that he wrote in short form. But he was going to write this Cold War thriller, and Bo finished it, and he finished it brilliantly. And it's got the feel of his father because his father, laid it out, but it's got a modern take. Like it's like his father was ahead of his time, like for sure, because the way that book ends, way ahead of its time. But what's crazy is it still holds today. And yes, Bo finished it in a modern sense, but he's still writing in the time period. And he was ahead of his time, and it holds today. So and that's how he was on to something with that book. And it's so amazing that Bo got to finish rewrite the first book that he ever kind of wrote, and then the last, and kind of that. I mean, that's just amazing. So to be able to be included with him to like promote that and stuff is pretty great. I read it and provided a review blurb for it. He did the same for me for the Ghost City. So we're very much big fans of each other in the genre, and
awesome.
we hope to keep working together in the future.
Well, having read both of them, it is going to be a fantastic summer for adventure fiction, man. It's a treat. The Mike Fowler character in that book was just so much fun. I could spend hours and hours with him. I could spend hours and hours with Ethan Cain. It's a rich time to be reading fiction. So and being not too terribly far from DC, you guys got to let me know when this thing is happening. I have to make it out there. It just sounds too fantastic.
We're trying to put it together. I think it's sometime in July in DC. It was going to be at the Barnes and Noble, but I don't know where it's going to be anymore. But he's committed, and we're going to do it. So
very cool.
That was awesome. Thank you for coming on and speaking so much wisdom that I'm going to take away from as a writer and having fun talking about the genre. We really appreciate your time and
guys,
the stories.
Anytime you want to have me on, it doesn't have to be about the book. Like, I love chatting with you guys about the craft. Like, you guys truly love this stuff, and it's great. So yeah, anytime have me on, just shoot me. I know I'm pretty busy these days, but I'll pitch you guys in whenever.
Awesome, man. Well, I mean, to Luke's point, I feel like there's a couple times when he and I we were too locked into what you were saying to even think about what we were going to ask you next. There was a couple times where I was like, all right, Luke, you keep asking the questions because I'm just, this is too much. I'm soaking in it.
Hey man, I'm glad everybody's got something out of it. Maybe we'll have to do like a books and or what were C.S. Lewis and
the Inklings.
The Inklings. They had like a writers group in a smoky room.
We got to make it happen.
Adventure version of the Inklings for the smoky back room of modern adventure writers. That sounds like a thing I want to be a part of for sure.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much. We'll link all your stuff below.
Cool.
Other than that, if you want to give the release date of Ghost City and any more information on that, we can then sign off.
Yeah, so the Ghost City comes out June 30th, wherever books are sold. William Demerit, who narrated the audiobook, is back. He's a good friend of mine. He's back to narrate the series. Again, going forward, he's very excited about it. Same producer as well, so the audiobook is going to be like top notch again.
Very cool.
And I'm in the middle of getting the augmented reality cover done for the second book, which is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be more of a vertical structure. So now it's going to be cool and fun, but there's going to be the puzzle element. It's going to be a lot more interactive with the actual book. So there are codes embedded in the book that unlock the puzzle on the augmented reality cover that give you a password. So on my website, when you go through, most of your viewers who have read this book might already know that there's a hidden password on my website at the bottom. For your viewers, I'll tell you what it is. It's the Memento Mori circled at the bottom of my website. That's a password.
Cool.
You'll need to have read Blood and Treasure to enter Ethan Cain's laptop. If you've read the book, chapter 3, you'll find out what his password is. Once you get in, it's going to keep going. So there's a new folder in there called Kusara Sara, which plays a part
big role
in the Ghost City. And so when you click on that, there'll be it's password protected as well. So that password you will find in the augmented reality cover puzzle that you need to solve from reading the Ghost City. So it'll be kind of more vertical structure. And what you'll get when you do that is a free ebook of the first ever Ethan Cain manuscript that I ever wrote, which I fully produced to self-publish before I ended up getting the Blood and Treasure published. It plays cameos in Blood and Treasure. It's got a lot of the history of Ethan Cain, how him and Lana met, and it's called Burning Water. And it's cool. It's fully produced ebook for free. You can download it, email it to your Kindle, like whatever. It'll read beautifully on there. Totally free. So it'll be on there with some other goodies that I'm in the process of making.
Not free because you have to do the treasure hunt to find it, which makes it even.
You got to do
better.
The treasure hunt.
That's fantastic.
But right now, I have it posted on the normal secret passage. So if you're already a fan of Blood and Treasure and you already done that, you can go in there right now, get the free ebook. But once the other stuff is done, I'm going to shift that ebook over to the other folder.
Dude, when you were saying Louis L'Amour was ahead of his time, you, my friend, are ahead of your time. This is the coolest stuff. And if you guys want to be reading the Clive Cusslers of tomorrow, you got to read Ryan Pote's stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this is awesome, Michael Crichton kind of thing, but now, whereas he's ahead of his time, pushing things forward.
This is all I can say. So I'm working on another project. I'm not allowed to say exactly what, but I'm allowed to say who I'm working with. But I'll show you the current first draft that I'm working on right now for something.
Oh, baby.
There it is.
For those not watching.
So we'll just keep that there.
Is on
that was the name that just graced the screens, guys. This is beautiful. Congratulations on that.
When I can finally announce that for sure, for real, and get into detail, I'll let you guys know. We'll definitely have to chat again.
Cool. Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I think to tie back into what we started with, you saying, to hear you as someone who's bringing back this genre in such a big way, to know that you're taking it seriously is encouraging, and to end with that sort of great news. It makes me have a lot of hope for the future. So
cool. Hey, you guys are doing all the legwork. I'm just I'm just the guy who stumbled in drunk into the room and they're like, "Oh, you're here." And
it's a blast, man. Thanks for coming on the show. We're always happy to have you.
Appreciate it, brothers. Thank you.
Take care. See you guys.
See you next time.
See ya.